calling the Wednesday, October 8th, 2025 Harbor Commission meeting. I may have a roll call, please.
Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present, with the exception of Commissioner Young, who has an excused absence today.
And I believe that Commissioner Spurcheck is in the parking lot.
Yes.
So with that, I'm going to ask if Commissioner Miller would lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
On your rise, place your hand over your right hand. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll open this up for public comments, and public comments are invited on non-agenda items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, we invite but do not require you to state your name for the record. The Harbor Commission has the discretion to extend or shorten the speaker's time limit on non-agenda items, provided the time limit adjustment is applied equally to all speakers. As a courtesy, I ask that you please turn your cell phones off or set them into silent mode.
Is this on? It is on. I had a couple slides I was hoping could get called up as I get started. But after the last meeting, I got to thinking maybe part of the issue is there's like over 70 pages of Harbor Code. There's the Coastal Act, there's public resource codes, there's Coast Guard regulations, and Army Corps stuff, part of the U.S. or the California Constitution. So I just thought it might be helpful to go through some of this stuff here so we can perhaps kind of all be on the same page in some regards. And in this slide here, and I'm told by a number of appraisers that a 40-foot is the most common mooring in Newport Harbor. And if they're based on lineal feet, but the appraisers and state lands convert that to square foot for fee purposes. And that 40-foot mooring in Newport pays $1.36 a square foot per year. And the rest of the material on the slide is from the city's website. And residential piers pay 58 cents per square foot a year. And they also don't pay for the space their boats occupy, the residential piers. So a 40-foot mooring pays like 230% higher rates over a greater area. And then medium commercial marinas, small commercial marinas, 50 yards, boat rental facilities, sport fishing charters, restaurant guest lists, vessel charters, fuel docks, and all others. Everybody pays less than offshore mooring permits, and a lot of these are commercial for-profit permits. Yet some of them pay substantially less than the difficult to access moorings. And then if I could have the next slide, please. Some of these are quotes. A year ago tomorrow, the executive officer of State Lands, having looked at some of this stuff, says, quote, "I think what's really appalling in this situation is that incredible discrepancy between the pier rates and the mooring rates. And I can also acknowledge that the amount of tidelands that are being utilized by those private recreation or residential piers and the vessels that are attached to those piers is significantly larger than the moorings and the boats associated with those moorings. So there is some real definite inequity going on here," close quote. And then at the same meeting, she said, "We have different rates for the moorings versus the piers. On the piers and the mooring buoys, we also charge for an impact area. So when the boat is tied up to either the pier or the mooring buoy, and the occupation of the land that's taken based on that, in all honesty, our mooring buoy rates are much lower than our residential pier rates," close quote. And I've been looking at State Lands Commission agendas for nearly 2 years. They meet every other month. There's tons of leases on there, tidelands throughout other parts of the state. And as she said, the executive officer, who was also a member of the state bar, moorings, it just makes sense. You can't get to a mooring, you can't walk to a mooring, there's no electricity, there's no designated parking, there's no showers. And that's, like I say, I think maybe if some of these things can be recognized, and again, you guys all have your personal lives, and Ms. Marston, her personal life, there's an awful lot to know, but there's a lot of people that are willing to share information. Thank you.
Thank you.
commission meeting, and I want to declare up a misunderstanding that some commissioners have expressed regarding why boat owners put their boats on moorings. One commissioner, in fact, apparently believes that many mooring permits are purchased and sold for financial gain. This could not be farther from the truth, and I'm concerned that this idea has been promoted by the Harbor Commission as a fact. Boat owners do not obtain a mooring permit in order to make a killing by selling it. They obtain a mooring permit because they cannot afford to rent a boat slip from the city of Newport Beach, the Irvine Company, a waterfront homeowner, or they do not own a multi-million-dollar waterfront home at the dock. After paying monthly mooring fees, biannual mooring tackle replacement and/or upgrade, purchasing a dinghy, paddleboat, rowboat, or other flotation device in order to access their mooring, and incurring other expenses for several years, they're likely to recoup their initial investment. The entities that are making a profit are those renting their slips and dock space while paying considerably less than mooring permittees paid to the city of Newport Beach for the use of the state of California's tidelands. Can you have the slide, please? Oh, there it is. Right here. This slide shows a 50-foot slip near Lido Village that in 2022 was offered for $43,200 per year, with the slip owner likely paying from 58 cents to 99 cents per square foot per year into the Tidelands Fund for only the square footage of the dock. That's more profit in just 1 year than a typical 40-foot mooring permit transfers for in any year. In a breakdown of costs to acquire, own, and maintain moorings in Newport Harbor over a period of 20 years, the acquisition at $44,000, the Tideland rent $36,000, the tackle $17,000 approximately, and a transfer fee, it comes to a loss of $98,435. The cost to operate and maintain a private dock in Newport Harbor with a transfer for over 20 years, a transfer fee of $28, Tideland rent for $12,000, and then dock rent income for 20 years at $2,500 a month is $600,000 for a profit of $587,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? Okay, our next item. Yes, she did. Is approval of the minutes from September 10th. And we had some comments that have been submitted, had the opportunity to review. Are there any additional comments, Commissioner Storchek? Commissioner Williams?
None.
Secretary Scully?
None.
Vice Chair Martin? Commissioner Miller?
Nothing for me.
And I also have no additional comments. We'll open it up for public comments.
Pluggers again, I submitted something for this as well, and I transcribed this from the audio of the last meeting, and this is Chair Scully saying, quote, "The moorings in our harbor are a big deal for this Harbor Commission. We want to make it better. We want to do it right, and we've got to find common ground in order to be able to make changes within the harbor and still coexist and still have an opportunity for mooring permittees to have quiet enjoyment of their mooring and enjoy Newport Harbor and have it as the most affordable access to a harbor, and I'm all for that." Close quote. That ties into the fees I was just talking about. Mooring should offer the most affordable access to the harbor, other than, say, if you brought a boat on a trailer and launched it for a day. This is what Secretary Scully said, but the minutes as first published from the city don't reflect that, nor do his corrections to the minutes, nor do Ms. Marston's corrections to the minutes, nor do Chair Beer's corrections to the minutes. So this statement by the chair or the secretary last time, everybody in the room agreed with, but it's not reflected in the minutes. And this, again, it could be inadvertent, but people are watching and it doesn't look good. And I recall a recent meeting where I had submitted corrections to something I had said, and I remember when the motion came up, the motion was to accept the corrections from those two up there, but not the ones I'd submitted, and I wasn't the only one in the room who noticed that. And it just doesn't make you folks look good. And again, maybe it's unintentional, but if the minutes were reflective of what was said, particularly in this instance, that would go a long ways towards building faith. Thank
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Is there a motion to continue?
Ask a question.
Absolutely.
For clarification, how do we go about recording minutes versus the recording this gentleman speaking about? Is there a disparity in what we're saying versus what's recorded? What am I missing?
Shouldn't be, and I'll leave that to staff to, if you want to elaborate on the process.
So our minutes are, meetings are recorded, and then they are then sent to a transcriber, the entire audio. Then she sends us her notes, and then we review them, and then we send them out to the commissioners.
We all sit up here and are doing this in the public view. This notion that we're saying and doing things up here and it's written down a different way, does not sit well with me. So can we hash this out?
May I respond to your question?
I don't think hashing it out. I think it's pretty clear there's a process that's followed. Clearly, it's recorded, it's transcribed. Typically, minutes are rarely, if ever, recorded word for word. They're surmised based upon what is stated and what the intention is. Otherwise, we'd have minutes, you can imagine. So that process is left to a sound, proven, established process, and we should respect that. And that's why public comments are available, and we appreciate those comments, and they're all taken into consideration.
Yeah, in my mind, so long as the intent of everybody's statements is captured appropriately, everybody's good.
Clear. Any additional comments?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, please.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from our September 10th meeting with the additions from myself, from Chair Bear, Vice Chair Marston, and Mr. Levis.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
If I may, before I cast my vote, I believe the record, at least from my view, should state that I'm, for one, am not clear on what changes are being proposed to the minutes by Mr. Leverance. There's nothing that really sets forth what the changes should be other than highlighting some comments that were made.
My point was just he provided documentation as relates to the minutes, and
So would it be accurate to say that his comment is what you're suggesting be attached to the minutes? Because there's really nothing in there that's referenced to changes. Is that allowable to amend this motion?
So his comments are already attached onto the agenda, along with all of the other comments that were received.
So there's really nothing to incorporate into the minutes in terms of change because there's none specifically presented other than the comments. So do you want to amend your motion?
just the original motion were just to add to the minutes Mr. Levin's comments.
Oh, then, okay, then I
That was my
misunderstood.
intent. I mean, the
Okay,
comments
so-
that he had on the paperwork that he
Right.
provided.
So the motion is to accept the changes provided by yourself, myself, and Vice Chair Marston, and make sure that the comments from Mr. Leverance are also part of the record. Okay, with that, then I say yeah.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next order of business is our current business, and it's ad hoc committee updates. There are several ad hoc committees that have been established to address short-term projects outside of the Harbor Commission objectives, and this is the time that those committees will provide an update on those projects. The Balboa Ferry ad hoc commissioners, Scully, Spurgeon, do you have anything to update with respect to that?
I do. I had a conversation about 2 days ago with Joe Beek, and They are still diligently pursuing the grant money from California Resources Board and from the Southwest Air Quality Management District. It's been slow. You got two big agencies that have to go through the gates with their individual responsibilities, so it's been slow. I did ask him if they considered to just drop it in light of all the changes with the Trump administration and basically cutting the ability for CARB to require this to be done. In talking to Joe, they said they've been down, they're so far down the path, and that here in the short term, the ferries are gonna, one would have to have engines replaced, and two would need to replace the ferries themselves due to their age. So they're gonna continue to go down the path and try to replace those with fully electric and the charging infrastructure. So barring any funding issues from those two state agencies, they're continuing down the path, inclusive of the charging infrastructure in the street there on Double Island. I don't know, Mr. Spurcheck, you have anything on your end? Yeah.
It's a great update. Thank you for that, and hopefully that funding all stays in place. It'll be a great project when it's done. The second ad hoc committee is the general plan update to the Harbor Bay Element ad hoc created result of Chris Miller and presentation. Commissioners Marston and Scully, any updates with respect to that?
Well, we had a call, and just to refresh everybody's memory, we had a presentation. I keep forgetting his last name, Ben Zaveda and Kurt Black, and they talked about the general plan, the Harbor Beach and Bay Element. In that meeting, I provided some comments from myself, and we on the call with Vice Chair Marston and Commissioner Yon, we talked about those comments. We talked about the plan. We set another meeting for a week from now, and our intent, and if you disagree, please chime in, is to try to come back to the November meeting with some thoughts from the ad hoc committee. And I think it's important that the Harbor Commission does provide formal comments as it relates to the general plan in the Harbor Bay Beach Element. So I impose upon the Harbor Commissioners prior to the next meeting, if you can take a look at that attachment A in the Harbor Beach and Bay Element, and familiarize yourself with it, and be interested to know if you had any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns as it relates to, how do we start to form our formal comments to include in that plan. Vice Chair Marston.
No additional comment.
Thank you for the update. Regarding Harbor Commission objectives, which is the third ad hoc committee that currently exists, I can state that a template has been prepared with respect to what the objectives format should look like. The ad hoc committee has been going back and forth with some thoughts and ideas. As we had originally stated, it's our intent to have something back to the commission before the end of the year, and hopefully at the next meeting for discussion. If there's anything else that you want to add to that?
I think it's a good summary, thank you.
Do any of the commissioners have any other comments with respect to these ad hoc objectives? Any public comments?
Again, I was hoping you would indulge a question. Secretary Scully, you mentioned the GPAC at a November meeting. Did you mean a November Harbor Commission meeting or a November GPAC meeting? Thank you.
Okay, this is a receive and file. There's no action to be taken on this item. Next item 5.2 are the actual Harbor Commission objectives. And I'll just kind of buzz through them if there are updates. All right. Okay, apologies. You stand corrected. Still, it's the Harbor Commission and 2024 objectives. Very good. Thank you. So, one is conducting an annual review of Title 17, and I know that Commissioners Miller, Williams, and Yan are on that, and I think there is just a little bit of an update. Perhaps if either of you want to share that, feel free to do so.
Sure. We've actually had several preliminary meetings in review, and we've listed some items that we believe should be reviewed and refined under the Title 17, and as we continue to collect those notes, we have set, and if you could refresh me on the date, but I'll say it's November 10th, I believe is the date we've established to hold a stakeholder meeting, so we'd love everyone to be involved in that. Have input into some of the bullet points that we've made, and then work towards continue on clarification of what Title 17 looks like and the impact that it has on our harbor.
Thank you. Confirming that is November 10th.
Correct, 6 p.m. at Epping Park, and there'll be a little bit more information on that in my presentation.
That's great, and then it's good to hear that that's moving forward. That was very productive for last review of Title 17, so looking forward to that. Collaboration with Water Quality and Coastal Tidelands Committee, Commissioners Sverchek and Scully, any updates with respect to that?
Yeah, just a brief highlight. There was discussion on restoration projects in Newport, specifically North Star Beach and Irvine Avenue in the Back Bay area. They're talking about re-landscaping and restoring those existing open areas. They also discussed a viewing deck on the for the trash interceptor. So, you know, kids, school kids, anybody who wants to go see how it operates, will make it easy to see. So those were some of the discussions.
Thank you. Next objective is identifying opportunities to add additional harbor services. Vice Chair Marston, anything to add to that?
Yeah, as I mentioned last month, Commissioner Yan and I met on this and talked about it with respect to the CIP list of projects that Mr. Miller had presented to us. So I met with Mr. Miller a couple days ago and talked with him about some of the ideas to potentially add to the CIP list. That's my update.
Okay, thank you. Next is regarding the Newport Harbor Safety Committee, according to best practices and addressing safety issues on the water. Commissioner Scully, anything to add?
Nothing new to report tonight.
Okay. And then reviewing harbor department responsibilities related to readiness for normal operations and during emergencies. Make recommendations as necessary. Commissioners Williams and Scully, anything new?
I have nothing further to report for this evening.
Great. And on the update of the market rent to be charged for onshore and offshore moorings, that is still in process, waiting for some more feedback from state lands. I would like to mention that in the documents, there still shows on that committee former Commissioner Cunningham. If we can delete that, just to bring that current. And then the last commission objective is with respect to the dredge completion of the federal navigation channels. And again, on that, I would like to make sure that former Commissioner Cunningham is deleted from that. And I'd like to know, because it does not indicate on here that the replacement is with Commissioner Sverchek, so we can make sure who, I can't recall who was.
It's with Commissioner.
Commissioner Miller.
Yeah.
So we can make those changes, that'd be great. And I will defer any updates on that to our harbor master, but I believe it does have some updates there provided by Chris Miller, and look forward to hearing about that. Any other commissioner comments with respect to the objectives that have been addressed? Seeing none, I'll open up for public comments. Are there any public comments with respect to the objectives? Seeing none, no action received and filed, we'll move on to the Harbor Master update for the September 2025 activities.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Paul Blake, your Harbor Master. It is a pleasure to be with you once again. Here's a report on September activities in your Harbor Department. As always, this report is organized according to our mission, which is to keep the harbor clean, safe, and well enjoyed. Excuse me. In terms of, and I'm sorry, there is a robust staff report. In this presentation, I covered just a few highlights in those areas, as well as providing a number of statistics and a couple of updates at the end. In terms of keeping the harbor clean, in the month of September, a number of team members attended a symposium put on by the County of Orange Public Works group on management construction best management practices, especially as it relates to runoff from construction sites. As a result of our team attending that, they were armed with much better skills for identifying and investigating debris in the water, etc., and issued the first stop work order related to unauthorized runoff discharge into the harbor from an upland construction site. On the right-hand side of the screen, you see that stop work order and the runoff that was going through a gutter on 19th Street into the bay, right at the public dock there. We have a new program actively being pursued to keep impounded vessels free of bird waste. The trash rover was reactivated, and I'll provide some video footage of that in just a moment. And we stepped up fishing enforcement to focus on 3 specific areas or 3 particular violations of the code on those or in those areas where fishing is permitted, and especially in those areas where fishing is not permitted in the harbor. On the right-hand side, the images you see in the middle are someone fishing, actually a youth fishing at the Balboa Marina public dock where fishing is not permitted. Some information was captured or taken from that youth, and he was issued a notice of violation. The bottom image is one of the boats we have in impound that was brought to Marine Park and got a thorough wash down, and there are now better bird defenses adorning the boat while it is in impound out on the water. Here is a video. Sorry, the audio is perhaps a bit low. Not sure how to do that.
You should take up 1 piece of trash, 1 piece of plastic items.
So this is Harbor Safety Officer.
So yeah, so let's say
after
as
operating the
as
drone,
a department doing pretty good.
Harbor Safety Officer Andrew
So
is
good job,
actually
everyone.
speaking, and the drone is off in the distance in the middle of the West Anchorage.
Alright,
The
we'll report back when we get our first piece of plastic or something.
Labor Day weekend. They were just operating it to ensure all of its functions were functioning as appropriate, that it had the range it had. There was not a lot of debris in the water that day, so they had a hard time actually picking up any trash. But it was a good public relations experience. This second video, you'll see Harbor Safety Officer Timmerman interacting with constituents on paddleboards.
Around this distance, and it can go pretty far. A lot of constituents are very interested. So I'm glad to report everyone's pretty happy with it so far. It has pretty good range, I would say. We're around this house, this boat, and it's all the way to that way so far. Alright.
We have yet to be successful in allowing the rover to operate in fully autonomous mode, but we continue to work with the manufacturer to head in that direction. In terms, here's your dredging update. And this was all provided by Chris Miller. He is unfortunately unable to be here today because he's attending a conference up in Long Beach. But the update on the lower bay, our U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the big dredge project, the contractor has been selected. It's RE State Street. They are in biological surveys. The anticipated start date is mid-November, and of course weather dependent. A bunch of their material is going up to the Port of Long Beach, and the window for getting that material is mid-November to May of next year. 180,000 cubic yards of removed sediment will go up to the Port of Long Beach as a fill project, and the remaining 745,000 cubic yards of sediment will be disposed of out in LA3. You may recall when the project was proposed, there was a significant 80 or 90,000 cubic yards that were going to be placed in front of placed between the wedge and the Balboa Pier as beach replenishment. But for whatever reason, that operation, that portion of the operation has been abandoned. The next project is the Balboa Yacht Basin access channels. So this is just dredging the channels between the fingers within the Balboa Yacht Basin Marina. The contractor has been selected, and the reason it's highlighted in green is because it's also the contractor that's going to do the third project. They're doing biological surveys. The anticipated start date is early December or late January. I guess they're going to knock off for the boat parade because they can't have their equipment staged in the what is the name of that channel? It's the D field, also known as Beacon Bay. Thank you very much. So they can't have their equipment staged in Beacon Bay while the boat parade is going on. So they'll come back in January and get going again. And there's 30,000 cubic yards of that sediment that's going to go up for that field project in Port Long Beach. Lastly, the Linda Isle Lagoon project and some residential slips, that's all being funded by the Homeowners Association itself. The contractor, however, is the same as what the city has selected for the yacht basin arena. They are finalizing their permits with the 5 agencies that are required. Their anticipated start date is early December, late January, and that will be coordinated with the Balboa Yacht Basin project. They have 35,000 cubic yards of sediment, all of which is suited for disposal at the LA 3 oil site. Moving on to keeping the harbor safe. There was this small vessel rental operator that was reminded about the requirement for providing their staff to begin with the basic rules of operating the harbor, and then an encouragement to have their staff provide education on the basic rules of operating the harbor to their customers. You guys all talked about this at your meeting last month, and hopefully it makes it onto your objectives for the next go-round. And maybe we'll tighten up the requirements and put additional requirements on the marine activities permits for some of those small vessel operators. I have direct experience with some unsafe operation from small vessel rental customers recently. Improper anchoring, speeding, and personal watercrafts were the primary focus of safety activities and enforcement advisements. No actual citations were issued for any of that, including speeding, so we issued no speeding citations in the month of September, but we did issue a tremendous number of advisories and notice of violations. We conducted a welfare check on a liveaboard with the help of the city social worker, and that turned out to be a very good experience. The request for the welfare check came from that liveaboard's relatives who are not nearby, but we now have a much better understanding of what resources are available through the city social worker, and there will probably be additional checks provided in the near future. It has not been widely reported in any news outlets, but just to keep you all in the loop, there was a theft of a 55-foot sunseeker that caused significant damage between midnight and 1 a.m. or midnight and 1:20 a.m. On a night in September. There were 10 boats in the A field that were heavily damaged, one that was sunk, and there were 2 boats in the BYC field that were that were heavily damaged. The investigation and all the law enforcement activity associated with that activity that took place between, as I say, midnight and 1:20 a.m. Was handled by the Orange County Sheriff's Harbor Department, or Harbor Patrol. We were asked to contribute to the investigation at sunrise, which we did because we had a resource on the water at sunrise. We were thanked for our contributions to the investigation, but they have provided no further information on the incident to us. The stolen vessel is back in its regular slip, but it was heavily damaged, both above the waterline and its running gear. What stopped it actually was the anchor tackle for a mooring in the BYC field. So what finally caused the boat to come to a halt was getting tangled in mooring tackle in the BYC field. And then lastly, we, among many others, rescued a kayaker near 15th Street dock. What you see there in the images is a cover photo of the Colbride 72, which everybody in the harbor should be obeying. These are the basic rules of the road for operating a vessel in the United States waters. It's actually international waters, Colbrides are international, but we adopt them and we abide by them and we promulgate them. In the middle image image, what you see is some multiple berthing at a popular restaurant on harbor that was addressed, and though the vessel owners were unaware, the restaurateur was unaware that they were berthed improperly, but there's multiple berthing violations going on there, as well as intrusion into the navigable harbor. When they were finally contacted by a harbor safety officer, it was resolved very quickly, and with appreciation for the harbor safety officer's approach to getting the safety improved. Lastly, you see the overturned kayak and the person in the water that was rescued near 15th Street. In terms of the enjoyment of the harbor, citations for unpermitted charters and noise violations were issued to a boat well known to us and not permitted to operate commercial charters in the harbor. They continue to be a nuisance in the harbor, and they continue to ask for special dispensation and accommodation in the harbor, and we continue to refuse to provide that. Their reputation is significantly damaged in this harbor, and essentially all the other commercial operators are keeping their eyes open and providing us with information about the unpermitted charter operations of that particular vessel. A mooring permittee who had brought their the assigned vessel to Marina Park for a for just regular cleaning and maintenance. Ship shape program. That's the program we have at Marina Park. So assigned vessel to a mooring came in for ship shape. While it was in ship shape, its tender went free range. We went out, tracked it down, and brought it back to the owner who was still making improvements to his boat at Marina Park. A stand-up paddleboard self-service vending machine was addressed in a parking lot on the peninsula. And you see the image there in the middle right. This was heretofore unknown to us, and we believe unpermitted. We referred it to Upland Code Enforcement for a vending machine without proper authorization or permitting in the city of Newport Beach. It was not harbor related, though the product was harbor related. And then lastly, the electric vessel charging station was finally installed at Marina Park. It is not operational yet, but it was installed. It does exist. I remind you all that that project began in April of 2018. When I was still harbor commissioner and met the representative from Aqua Superpower, who has diligently dogged this project through the permitting process. We hope to have a grand unveiling sometime in October and then announce it to the public shortly thereafter. Odds and ends, we addressed the mooring permittee advertising a sublease online. That is not permitted under the current code, so we reached out to that mooring permittee and had to take the ad down. We responded to a very unusual call involving aerial silks that had been hung from the Lido Bridge and a rehearsal, not an actual performance, but there were two people on the bridge expecting to conduct a rehearsal of aerial silks from that suspension. We encouraged them to take it down and do that elsewhere because it is illegal. And then significant upgrades and repairs are being made to two of our patrol vessels, which were heavily used during the summer months. What you see in the top image are those aerial silks hanging from the Lido Bridge on the north side. Below that image is HD1, our oldest patrol boat that was a hand-me-down from our resources, getting new accommodation, including storage seats, a fuel tank, and some additional overhead coverage. And then in the lower right, you see that advertisement for a mooring lease opposite the American Legion Outlet. Now I bring you some improved statistics. Here you see our total calls for service in the month of September was about our regular average, 2,083 calls, a much more sustainable rate than had been in August, so I'm pleased to report. Ours have subsided and we're able to better respond to all the calls that we have for service in a month. That's where we should be, and I think the heat map shows that we did have indeed good coverage across the day and even a little bit outside the day during the month of September. As always, those statistics and further details on any of those specific calls for service are available to the public on the Harbor Department website. Here is our harbor amenity map usage, which tracks in 2025 very closely with the usage in 2024 and 2023. we will continue to publicize the availability of that amenity now and encourage its use. Here is the permitting activity that we've engaged in 2025. Again, Rhine Wharf usage is down mostly because of the boat show. Marine activities permits were first launched in EnerGov this year, and harbor event permitting has been a brisk business. This compared with 2024, where I was heavily focused on the Rhine Wharf and harbor events, and very few marine activities permits were issued using this tool. And I bring you the following statistic or chart just to show that we don't issue every permit that comes, or every permit application that comes our way. To it, for harbor events permits, 74 were issued, 6 have been denied, 2 were canceled, and 2 are yet pending. Pending generally means that the application fee has not been paid, but we intend to issue it when the fee gets paid. In terms of the Rhine Wharf use, to date this year we have issued 29, we've denied 1 because it was a conflict with another one, and there are 5 pending paying the fees. For marine activities permits, we are not yet, we haven't yet categorized those permits that come in, these applications that come in that do not get issued. Generally, we discourage potential permittees from completing the application if we know we're going to deny it. But in the coming months, we will improve our utilization of other statuses for those applications, just so we can report on how much work we actually do that isn't reflected in those previous charts. And it really is a significant amount of work to review those applications, most of which are approved eventually, but some of which do not get approved. Here was the acreage utilization for the month of September, pretty heavy in the beginning of the month, and lots of more than the calendar will show activity. There, the midweek utilization has gone down significantly as school has started. The weather has waned. I call your attention to a couple of upcoming events, the first of which Commissioner Miller had mentioned. On November 10th at 6 p.m. at Marina Park, there will be a stakeholder meeting related to proposed, suggested, recommended revisions to the city municipal code. And I just caution you, not all the recommendations are specific to Title 17. The Harbor Commission has the authority to recommend changes outside of Title 17. You need not you need not be limited to Title 17. There are areas of the rec code that are appropriate. There are areas of the nuisance code that are appropriate and harbor related. You should not be out there poaching in the planning commission's bailiwick, but to the degree that there are other sections of the code that have harbor related requirements, it is within your authority to recommend changes, so don't be limited to 17. The materials for that meeting, for that stakeholder meeting, which include the agenda for the meeting and the collected to date suggested revisions, are all published and available on our department's website, also on the city's main calendar. So anybody wanting to go see what those suggested revisions are at this point are welcome to go and review them at that site. I remind you, this is a subcommittee meeting, and the 3 subcommittee members, which are Commissioner Miller, Yon, and Williams, can participate in this meeting. The rest of you may not, because it is not a special Harbor Commission meeting, and it is not going to be publicized to the satisfaction of the parameters. So there will be no meeting. I'm sorry, there will be no minutes taken, but the results of it will be presented to you at a future Harbor Commission. So you will be kept in the loop, but please do not attend that meeting for fear of a Brown Act violation. Lastly, I call your attention to the fact that this Saturday at 7 a.m. registration will begin for the annual Newport Harbor Underwater Cleanup, which will take place at Marina Park. Divers will go in the water at 9 a.m. They will come out at 11 a.m. There will be a ceremony thanking them and the volunteers, as well as publicizing the most unusual, the largest items that come out as a result of this cleanup activity at 11:30. I will be there and hope to see many of you there as well. That is your report on September 15th.
Thank you, Mr. Harbormaster. Comments from commissioners, Commissioner Miller.
I just had a quick question. Is our HSOs interface with voters more and more every day, and they're doing an amazing job. How are they positioning, or how are they handling the fact that now all voters are supposed to have a voter card? What's their direction of how to manage that when they encounter somebody? And is it like a police asking for a driver's license? I don't know what the process is. Maybe you can enlighten me just a little bit on that.
Thank you. It's an excellent question. All of the Harbor safety officers are aware of the requirement for a California voter card for anyone operating a vessel, motorized vessel on Newport Harbor. And when they do encounter anybody for any particular reason, they will typically ask, are you aware of the requirement to have a California voting card? And depending on the response, they will take one path or another. The typical response for someone who says, no, I don't have a California voting card, the typical response given by a harbor safety officer would be, well, sir, it is a requirement, and should there be an incident that involves damage, it is likely the first question asked by the investigating officer or your insurance company will be, do the parties have the requisite California voting card? And coverage for such an incident may be affected by that answer. And then we leave it there. We don't ask to see it. If they don't want to talk to us about it, we don't pursue it. Profanity has been used when we've asked that question. I would say we get a 50% affirmative response, maybe a little better than 50%.
Okay, well, thanks to those guys for doing it, because that's not an easy job, I would imagine. And the other question I have, I noticed in Marina Park that we do have the charging station. Is that gratis to any electric boat owners in the harbor, or is there people that come and park it and disappear for hours while they're charging, or is it the same as the Tesla charging station in Fashion Island? I'm just curious.
The rules will be very much similar to a road vehicle charging station publicly available or publicly accessible road vehicle charging station. The station at Marina Park the electricity is not free. It does require either the provider's app, which is Aqua Superpower, or a credit card to activate. Parking at that location is limited to 3 hours whether you're using the charging station or not. And the charging station is not available from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 8 a.m., I forget. I think it's 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. It's not available to the public. It is, however, available to the harbor department to charge our vehicle. And a quick test of it while it was active for a moment shows that the charge rate is it's 7 times faster than the current charging mechanism that we use.
Great, thank you for the update.
Vice Chair Marston?
Yeah, thanks for the report. Quick question on the anchorage usage. What's the difference between the red and the green?
It has to do with whether or not the vessel has been dye tapped. So all of the green bars indicate a vessel that was staying in the anchorage that has been dye tapped during that stay. The red indicates that those vessels were observed staying in the anchorage, but they were not dye tapped, either because the vessel is well known to us and it had been dye tapped in a previous stay, or there was nobody on board the several times we went by to try and ask for permission to place the dye tap in the marine sanitation device.
And there was no angry call of the month?
The most amusing call of the month?
Most amusing.
No. I chose not to report. There were certainly several amusing calls this month, including some comments at a city council meeting, but I chose not to report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sorchak, any comments?
Yeah, I was curious how the ship shape program works at Marina Park.
If you are a current permittee, onshore or offshore, if you'd like to bring your assigned vessel to Marina Park for up to 3 hours, Monday through Thursday, we'll give you a slip where you can perform light maintenance. And light maintenance includes cleaning, filling up with water, using electricity if necessary, anything that could be done by the owner-operator. It does not include large-scale mechanical upgrades, pulling motors, pulling significant equipment off the vessel. It is for light maintenance, performed mostly by the Special arrangements can be made if the vessel owner would like to, for instance, have the top sides polished by a professional, but those arrangements have to be made ahead of time. You can't just show up and ask for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Williams, any questions or comments?
Nothing, incredible job as always, thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Scully.
Yeah, Harbor Master Blank, the impounded boat, that's it, I think it's at Marine Park. Is that gonna go back to the owner? Is the owner trying to reclaim it, or is it gonna go up for auction?
Oh, great question. So the boat that particular 40-foot boat is not stored at Marina Park. It was at Marina Park for its ship shape program, and then it had to go back out to the undisclosed location. Let's call it an offshore mooring, where it is being stored. The registered owner, we have done everything we can to reach out to the registered owner and encourage them to come and collect their property. After a significant period of time goes by and either the fees are, exorbitant or whatever it is, for whatever reason, the city will take possession of the boat. That particular boat has been in the impound for more than 60 days, so it is quite likely that we will take possession of the boat very shortly. It remains to be seen whether we would take responsibility for selling it to another responsible owner in the condition that it's in, or we would go ahead and have it be tipped or have it destroyed under the state grant. And there are probably more than 6, less than 10 vessels in this situation in our marina. And by this, more than 20 feet. We've got several more that are under 20 feet, but 20 feet or above, and Cynthia, I'm looking for confirmation, it's about somewhere between 6 and 10 in this situation. And some of them are, like that one in particular is more challenging because it's documented with the United States Coast Guard. It's not with California DMV. So the process for taking possession of it with the United States Coast Guard is significantly more involved and costly and lengthy than taking one into our possession that is registered with the California DMV.
That's a big boat, that's a lot of work to destroy that boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was an irresponsible owner that left it here.
As a follow-on to Commissioner Miller's questions on the voting card, do you know, is it acceptable to provide a picture of the voting card, say on your phone, versus having the voter card in your possession? Do you have any idea what the rules are on that?
I do, and no. The quick answer is no. An image of it on your phone would not suffice. Is according to the law, the card itself must be in the possession of the operator when he's operating.
Okay. And then last question, the drone. What are you going to do with the drone? What specific functions will that drone?
The trash collecting rover. With the video that we were showing, its primary mission is to collect debris, floating debris. So
Okay.
it's basket, so it runs over.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a Roomba for the bank.
Okay.
And so its primary mission is to collect debris that is within 4 inches of the surface of the water. And it's intended to be able to do that in a automated fashion, like we can set it to go run a pattern, like a Roomba. Right now we have a game controller, so an operator actually has to operate it. But it collects debris that's floating on the surface of the water. It has an attachment that can be configured very quickly to collect liquid contaminants floating on top of the water as well. So at some point in the near future, if we can deploy it fast enough, we will use it to collect fuel spills, diesel spills, oil spills, etc.
Okay, it just triggered a thought in my head. Has there been any collaboration or discussion with the Newport Beach Police on their drone program and utilizing harbor safety officers to take them out, or the harbor department needing to call them in?
As the simple answer to your question is yes. As I left the office today to come up here for this meeting, there were 2 officers standing at our front desk collaborating with the 2 dockmasters who were on duty and the supervisor who was on duty today. And the police officers were explaining the deployment program for the drone, and it's bigger than the 5 nested drones that are available for operation by a central pilot at the police station. Many police officers are now carrying drones in the trunks of their cars or the back the cargo areas of their cars. Those have to be flown line of sight. So there are a significant portion of the Newport Beach Police Department forces that are trained in drone flying. And the discussion at the front desk was all about, okay, so we can do this, we can do that, and we can do this, and we can do that, and in these cases, we would need your help. And that I was only able to participate in about 4 minutes of that discussion, but it was very collaborative, very informative, and the team that was there, the 2 dockmasters and the harbor safety lead, we'll probably get a report later this week or next week about how that program's going to involve the harbor. And we have pledged all of our resources whenever they need them, and they will appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question on the drone as well. Do you know what the payload, what it can carry? What you want?
Well, it heavily depends on the hydrodynamics of what it collects. So it can collect very heavy objects as long as they float. It slows down and uses more battery power when it collects debris that is not hydrodynamic. So its total capacity, the basket itself is about 3 feet long and 18 inches in diameter. The maw on the front of it that the debris is funneled through is 18 inches, so that's the diameter, and the bag is the same. So theoretically, it can carry, it's geometry now. It's a cylinder of 3 feet long by 18 feet in diameter. Whatever that capacity is what it can carry. But I suspect that once it gets more than about 1/3 filled, whether it's leaves or styrofoam or bottle caps or bottles, the drag on the performance of the propellers is such that it has to come home and its payload.
I was thinking about the liquid would be very heavy very quickly, so.
Forgive me. No, the liquid is not that heavy, and of course, whatever liquid it's going to collect is going to be on the surface of the water, and it does. So the way it works is it runs over the contaminant, and it picks up about 3/4 of an inch of the surface water, and then it goes through a separator. It puts the salt water back into the bay, and it takes just the contaminant off the top. The bag that it drags for that particular purpose, I think, is 28 gallons. We, in the testing, have never filled it up with more than 3 gallons. And most of the spills we observe, while the dispersion surface area is significant, it's actually very little volume of liquid. It is typically less than 3 gallons. A spill that we identify and report and attempt to clean up is typically less than 3 gallons.
Great information, and thank you for a thorough report. We'll open it up for public comments related to the harbor master update that you're receiving.
Lovelands one more time. I recall that 2 recent meetings that proposed revisions to Title 17 were on the agenda and then deferred to later. And I requested that material be available to the public, so I'm very grateful for the harbor master's indication that those things that should be real beneficial to process. And my first interactions with Commissioner Scully and also Aaron Hart, city attorney, nearly 2 years ago now, were related to the Brown Act. And the harbor master indicated that you folks shouldn't attend due to risks for that. And the way I read it, and the way I've studied in other states, you're not precluded from attending, but you cannot there deliberate or act. And I'd love to see you all there, but there is a risk, and City Attorney Hart thought, well, the risk isn't worth it. But you're the people that are thinking about this stuff, and I think it's good to maybe engage with the public somewhere else, and you're probably not going to be told that you can, but that's my opinion. And then on the voter's card, I think we all understand that people that rent boats don't need one, correct? And then I've also read the statute or whatever. People that meet the voting requirements in their state don't need one. So there's a couple exceptions to having to have that. Thank you.
Licensed Coast Guard captains are also exempt from the voting.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? Seeing none, we'll move for a motion for reconsideration to the commissioners. A motion to reconsider any action taken by the Harbor Commission must be made at the same meeting or the subsequent meeting at which the action was taken, and may only be made by one of the Harbor Commission members who voted with the prevailing side. Are there any motions for reconsideration this evening by any commissioners? Seeing none, moving on. Are there any commissioner announcements at this time from Commissioner Miller?
No.
Vice Chair Martin, Secretary Scully, Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Swershek? Great. I know our harbor masters provided with several, and we thank you for that. Is there any items that commissioners would like placed on a future agenda for discussion, action, or report at this time?
Not for me.
Okay, seeing none. The date and time for the next meeting is Wednesday, November 12th at 5 p.m. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.